Folks, this is Tom Opre, your host to the podcast where we ask the tough questions regarding man's impact on the world's wildlife. Raw and unfiltered, we strive to help you fully understand the real issues at hand. Our goal, ensuring the world's wildlife and wildlife habitat exists forever. Stay tuned for another edition of Shepherds of the Wild.
So tell me a little bit about your history out here. We just kind of give me the kind of the elevator speech, how long you've been here and what you do and that kind of thing.
Ultimately, I graduated college in 99 and wound up teaching school for 3 years. Had a gentleman on this place that got a hold of me to buy his outfitting business. We got to know each other and he ultimately wanted to sell me his ranch. So I was given an opportunity that most people don't get. So I've been here since 2001. I've had the outfitting business and a ranch. And in that time, we've expanded both the ranching operation and the outfitting business.
So explain to me where we are. Just kind of give me an idea of what the terrain's like, just kind of what it's like to live here. Just kind of give me some idea of what this place is.
Okay, so we're located here about 5 miles west of Winifred, and it's the transition between we have the river breaks to the north, and as you go south, it's more agricultural fields, and then further south, we're kind of hemmed in between the mountains, the Judiths and the North Moccasin. We've got the luxury of a lot of different terrain, and from the breaks to the plains to the sagebrush to the mountains.
Okay. So, you tell me a little bit about your family. You guys you got different family members here, and you guys are all kind of doing your own thing, but kind of give me a perspective on, what the Wickens are doing in this part of the world.
So we've got a large family. Just in my immediate family, there's my dad's home place, and my brother's on that. And then we run completely independently, me and my wife, on this operation here. So we do very similar things, but we really, we kind of do our own thing.
So what is this operation?
We're a diversified cattle ranch, meaning we're kind of involved in every aspect of raising cattle. So we run a cow-calf operation. We have a small feedlot. We run yearling cattle, have a bred heifer business. We just getting started with a direct-to-consumer beef business as well.
Explain that to me a little bit.
So the direct-to-consumer ultimately kind of arose out of this. I guess we got tired of listening to ourselves complain about not making any money, and everybody else was making all the money. And so instead of complaining about it, we decided just to take some action and get after it. I've got 2 other brothers, and one lives in Bozeman, has lots of connections down there, and my other brother and I live here in Winifred, and so we decided that we could produce all the beef, and his job would be to sell it. And so far, it's been a learning experience, but it's going well.
So tell me, what is the name of the company? How is it structured, and what are you ultimately doing with it?
The name of the business is Wickens Ranch Beef, and right now we're just primarily focused on selling meat directly in Bozeman. Our idea was to bring the beef to the people and the people that are willing to pay for it, and Bozeman seemed like the perfect place to do that. And ultimately, what we'd love to do is figure out, get this system worked out, have a direct-to-consumer delivery style business, and also we do wholesale through restaurant. Once we could, if we ever do master that, we'd love to have a model we could pick up and move to any city in the country.
So you're trying to think outside of the box. Explain a little bit about some of the difficult things that caused you to start thinking outside of the box as being a cattle rancher in this part of Montana.
Well, it's no secret that the margins are thin on everything we do. And for years and years, we've always chased the next fence line, meaning, we can never be big enough. You always more and more and more. And pretty soon you reach a point where you just can't physically do anymore, and we've decided that instead of trying to always expand and get bigger and more, and our time is ultimately the most important thing we have. And that was, we were neglecting our families and neglecting, just relationships for this pursuit of bigger. And we decided that, we're going to try try and keep it at a manageable level and just create more margin on what we are doing. And it's just kind of the story of agriculture right now is it's become such a margin business. It's everything is a Costco model at this point, where you might only make, a penny each time, but you need a million of them to do it. And that model is just squeezing out everybody. I mean, you either got to get big and get on board, or get out, or find it. So, we're kind of trying to ride that balance of finding another way. And in the end, I mean, through all of this work, I hope that we can come up with a system and something that we can use to help other people. Like if we can develop just something along the way that other people can use, would be great too.
You're basically you're doing the same amount of work, but you're increasing the value of your end product because you're cutting out the middleman, basically.
That is the ultimate goal, is for us to just increase our margin by reducing the middleman, and it's easier said than done. I mean, you're trying to educate a market that it's not an easy thing to do, but in that same breath, I mean, it's as simple as you have a product that everybody wants, and everybody wants to support you because they like the idea. We just have to figure out how to make it all happen in a manner that everybody understands and can afford, and I think that it'll happen in the long run. But.
So why should somebody buy Wickens beef?
Well,
what's so special about it?
I would even go different, like that, not even Wickens beef. I would just encourage people to purchase local products, because the people like us who are actually stepping out, it's a challenge. And our products, any local product, is going to be a little more expensive, but when you pay that extra little bit, whatever that is, that's a big deal. You're making a decision. You're voting with your dollar, as they say. Like, if you really believe, if you actually care about agriculture, care about your local community, everybody should be buying as much local products as they can. And you can't complain about the Walmarts of the world and Costco taking over, and then turn around and you buy from Costco because you save a few cents here or there. So, I mean, people need to put their money where their mouth is if they actually do care about rural America.
That brings up a question. Is most people don't understand what you're doing. You live on these fairly large tracts of land, or you control large tracts of land. You sell cows for thousands of dollars. Aren't you guys rich?
Well, I mean, we're land rich and we're cash poor. That's the anomaly. This whole deal is so difficult for people to understand, because when they roll into our yard, yeah, we got cattle and tractors and we got assets all around us, but squeezing money out of them is the hard part. It's very expensive and there's not much profit in it. And people get tired of hearing about the plight of the farmer and rancher, and we're always broke, but it always seems like we got nice stuff. And but the thing is like, the banks are willing to lend you way more money than they should, because the value of our land is going up so much. But the only way for us to capitalize on that is to sell our land. And in the end, I mean, we're seeing it happen right now. Like, people are getting older. They're tired of the grind. They can't ever get ahead. And their best option is to sell out. And that's not to their neighbor. It's changing the whole landscape around here. We've got new neighbors, and it's not that they're bad people, but it's a change. It's not the people who have been here for the last 100 years and understand and are really contributing to our community in a way of, they're not volunteering for an EMT, they're not on the school board, they're not buying fuel and tires and stuff here locally, and it's a big shift, and it's not great.
Who are the people that are buying land here now?
In our area, there's a lot of, the APR, for one, is buying a lot of land, and there's a lot of non-residents, some oil money, and just, big money coming in and buying them for investments or recreational property. It's ultimately, it's not about you don't see any ranches advertised telling you how many cows they'll run and how much wheat they'll grow anymore. Like, that's not selling ranches. If an elk runs across it, how many deer, how many birds, that's what's selling. That's what people want. There's a lot of disposable money out there, and that's where it's going.
Well, basically, what you're saying is that the people that are coming in and buying these ranches in this area aren't keeping them in production. What's going on, and how does that affect things?
I wouldn't say they're going completely out of production. They're going to a substantially less production is what's going on. I think a lot of these guys, it's a novel idea. They'll run a few cows, but they don't want to interfere with, maybe some hunting. But in the long term, there's enough of this going on that it's a national concern. Like, people take it for granted. Like, what I do every day is I'm producing food for our country and others. I mean, and nobody gives it a second thought because the grocery store, the shelves are always full and nobody thinks about it. It's cheap and it's abundant. But as these places are going away, I mean, there's less and less production happening, and there's more and more reliance on foreign countries unfortunately, what's going to happen is one day it's going to dawn on everybody that we're not food independent, and that's a terrible place to be, but it'll be too late. It isn't going to matter at that point. Like, we're selling out our food industry to other countries. I mean, our beef supply is controlled by a lot of South Americans, and Chinese has a big input, and it doesn't seem to bother the consumer at all right now, but in time it's going to, I promise.
Well, you talked about some of these other landowners. You mentioned APR. What is APR? Explain it to me so that I would understand what APR is, what it represents, and what it's doing.
So the APR stands for the American Prairie Reserve. I think they might have changed their name to the American Prairie Foundation or something now, but ultimately they're a nonprofit organization who, with donor money, is buying large tracts of this land with the intent of removing people from it. Like, they call it rewilding the land and bringing it back to theoretically its original state. And they want to bring in bison and tear out the fences and the signs of life, ultimately, to bring it back to the way it was, which in theory, like, it's a very easy thing for them to sell because it sounds like they're doing it good. And unless you're one of the people that they're trying to rewild, and it's me and my neighbors and everybody around here, I mean, they've got other people's money and all the time in the world just waiting for people to get tired, and their offer is always there. And so people are selling to them because they're paying good money. And ultimately, these little towns are gonna, there's not a lot of people around here. And when the APR is knocking out families, well, there's that many less kids in the school. There's that many less kids contributing in the community. And it's having big impacts on us. But.
So when you say they want to, they want these areas to be wild again, they want to remove them back to some other time. I mean, can you explain to me what is it the other time and what are they removing?
Well, it's kind of interesting what they've said and what they do. I mean, the idea is they just want to remove signs of life, like
human life.
Human life. They've said that, but one of the first things they did is they bought a piece of private land and they went and built a house on the edge of the riverbank. I don't know what the intent of that was, but that would have never been there without their rewilding project. But what they'd like to do is pull out the fences and the water infrastructure that's all been put in for the last 100 years. And I don't know how much success they're having right now with that. It's kind of their big picture. I haven't really seen them getting a lot accomplished with that.
So give some scope and idea to the viewers exactly their actions, the purchase of lands and how much land and where it is and what kind of ecosystems. I mean, just give me some idea, how it fits into this big overall picture of theirs.
So the big overall picture, I mean, what they're looking for is, basically as undisturbed a native rangeland as they can find. I'm starting south of Malta. I believe right now they're close to 500,000 acres that they've put together, but large tracts of these are BLM. So you've got private land with big BLM leases attached to them. And with those BLM leases, there'll come a lot of rules that, like if I lease BLM and run cattle on it, I have to abide by dates in, dates out, and all those things. So they're running into some troubles with that stuff because you can't just turn out, bison and let them run wild there. But I mean, their ultimate goal is to use the CMR. They've already got about 1 million acre head start right there, and then they want to attach lands to that CMR to create this corridor. So, I mean, with that, there's a lot of people, private land in between there, and to connect it all up.
What is a corridor, and what does it look to do?
So theoretically, if you could roll back time 200 or 300 years, you'd have large herds of bison, and elk would be out on the plains, and it was more of a Serengeti type situation around here. I mean, everything used to kind of be a plains animals. They weren't pushed up into the mountains, and so that's the ideal that they would like to push, like that we're going to turn back time and pretend like people are not part of the equation. Well, I mean, it's not a reality. You're not going to have a large enough landscape ever put together. I mean, it's an ideology. I mean, what do I say? I mean, it's I mean, I guess they're selling it, and people are buying it, and people keep donating to them. They seem to have a lot of money. They keep buying land.
Where does their money come from?
A lot of their money comes from overseas. There's international money flowing into this deal, and I'm an outfitter, and I hear all the time about people like the APR because they're going to be able to hunt that land. So in my mind, you're dreaming. You're dreaming if you think you're going to have billionaires donating hundreds of millions of dollars to a project that they're not getting something for their money. I mean, I just find it really hard to believe that you donate, 10, 20, 30 million dollars. Miraculously, they put you as, they all get on the board of directors, and in the end, you watch, they're going to get something for their money. This is yet to be seen, and, I don't know what the future holds, but I think if people think that they're going to be hunting that land, that they're dreaming.
Well, you brought up hunting. So as I understand it, obviously you're an outfitter here. That's why you bought this piece of land from a previous outfitter. Tell me about outfitting. What is your business like? What do you do, and why are you an outfitter?
I guess what we do primarily is, we hunt mostly private land, but we also hunt some BLM and some state land, mostly big game. We do elk, deer, antelope, bighorn sheep. We do a little bit of bird hunting, but not a ton. Primarily why I'm an outfitter is because I have land payments to make, and this is the only, it's if I could make enough money to make my land payments running cattle, that's what I would do. But what I have here is I have an amazing resource with the wildlife, and I've found that the better management I do of the land, I see the wildlife flourish, and we just take advantage of that, and we manage the wildlife just like we manage our cattle, and just like we manage the grass and everything else. These are a very valuable resource, and I don't mean just in a financial sense. We have a lot of pride in managing, and I believe that's why a lot of our neighbors have leased their hunting to us, is that we manage their wildlife as well, and they see it flourish, and they see it multiply, and so to me, I take a lot of pride in that, and how we take care of things, and it's very important to us.
So clarify, you said you hunt state land and BLM land, but could you explain to me that you actually pay to take your hunters on those public lands?
Oh,
and you
yeah.
pay a fee, but explain to you how you do that.
Yeah, so for me to hunt on a public like a BLM or state land is I just pay a fee. I mean, actually, I pay a percentage of my gross income, which for the amount of BLM or state that I might use, I mean, I probably pay a larger fee than I realistically should, but it's, you know, it's what it is. There's a lot of ground there. We're not the only ones. We can't, you know, we just have to pay for the right to guide people on that land, and we can't kick anybody off. And so we're just out there with the public on that.
So you pay for the privilege.
Yeah, we pay for the privilege.
Okay. Outfitting, what are the pros and cons of it? What's the really positive things, and what are the really difficult things about outfitting here?
For me, the positive thing is I wouldn't be able to be here raising my family in Winifred without it. Like, that's the only way that I'm actually here. And what I see, what we provide to this community is huge. Like, I pay, you know, I hire guides, I hire local guides, I pay leases to families, you know, like family ranches are getting paid for the management of their wildlife. We buy all of our groceries in town, we buy all of our fuel, we buy our tires, our pickup, you know, like, and we're bringing in new money into Winifred. I mean, the highway actually ends in the town of Winifred. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere, and there's no new money coming to Winifred. You know, there's people, you know, people can talk about floaters and the APR bringing people in and all this. Yeah, you got a floater, they might fuel up and grab a candy bar on the grocery store on the way out. I mean, I have people bring in real money, and all that money stays right here. I mean, I can tell you where it all goes, and then it's all spent right here. And so that's, to us, is the biggest thing, is it's supporting us, it's supporting our community. The downside is it's like, I feel like we're contributing to, you know, it doesn't, you want everybody to have access, you know, I mean, like, we're part of the controlling of access. I mean, it's just what it is. I wouldn't call it an evil, because we're managing the land, but it's an image. It's definitely an image thing. I mean, I have people that don't like us just because of what we do. They don't know us, but they don't like us. And I mean, I don't like that, you know?
So who are these people who don't like you? Can you explain that to me so that we understand? So what you're talking about are resident hunters, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you say, you know, there's a lot of resident hunters that resent us or something like that?
You know, there's some resident hunters that resent us. I mean, there's organizations out there that are stoking the fire of these guys and giving false information. You know, and so we do get a certain segment of the public land hunter that just hates us. You know, like, they feel like I'm the reason that they can't hunt across that fence. And it's not true. I mean, if it wasn't me, that landowner is making that decision. That landowner would be leasing to somebody else. It'd be a doctor from town or a group of hunters from Pennsylvania. If it isn't me, it's going to be somebody else. And if I lease it, I can tell you that more is going back in this community than anybody else.
So why do landowners lease their land for hunting? And explain and say that. Rephrase my question.
I believe the primary reason that landowners around here are leasing their land is because they're not making any money running cattle and raising wheat. I mean, if we were making decent money on that, I can tell you there'd be a lot more open gates, because people wouldn't be so strapped. And as it is, though, I mean, people are just scraping, and that's a lot of the access issue right there. Is people got to recover. When you got 100 head of elk out there laying down your wheat right before you harvest it, you know, that has a real cost to it. I mean, they're losing thousands of dollars every night when the elk are just bedding in the wheat, making beds, laying it down while you can't pick it up with the combine, or they're out eating your hay bales, or in the middle of the winter, they're getting there tearing up your haystack. And it's, you know, we're paying $300 a ton for hay this winter. So, I mean, those are real costs, and they have to be recovered somehow.
What does, a lease, how does that, I mean, what kind of money are we talking about? Just give me some broad ranges of money and explain to me how that money, what it represents to the landowner.
So, I mean, every lease is different. And it depends greatly on what kind of ground they have, what kind of wildlife they have, and if I'm gonna have to, like there's a lot of places where you have to go in and you just have to let stuff rest for a few years and develop some, some age class in your animals. But generally speaking, I mean, you're looking at a couple bucks, $1 to a couple bucks an acre, I guess. It's really hard to gauge what a lease is going to be, but for a lot of these people, it's the difference of having their kids come back at the ranch. I mean, that could be what their son or daughter might be living off of, So
can you kind of give me some idea though? It's kind of like, some leases could be $5,000, some could be $100,000 or whatever. Kind of give me some idea of what outfitters pay in Montana for leases. And you can say, if you got elk on your property, it might be $100,000. If it's just a mule deer and antelope operation, it may be $5,000 or $1,500 an animal or something. Just kind of give me some ideas so that people understand, because they're going to ask.
It really depends obviously on what kind of animal you have and what class you're going to have. But you could do anything from a couple $1,000 up to $100,000 lease, depending on what kind of volume you're talking about. But I know here for like a medium-sized ranch, you can get $5,000-$10,000 lease pretty easy, and and for a lot of people, a lot of operations, that makes a big difference. I honestly, a lot of them probably don't recover all the damage, their damage costs, but it's better than what they were getting.
Yeah. What you've mentioned earlier about groups out there that are kind of putting a crosshair on landowners and outfitters. Give me an idea of who are these groups and what are they doing?
There's quite a few. There's several in Montana. These groups that are. They just, who they really don't like is the non-resident landowner who comes in and buys a big piece of ground, closes the gates, creates a sanctuary, and has lots of elk. Well, the rest of us are just kind of collateral damage. Like if you happen to be a landowner or an outfitter, then in some way we've become their enemy. And I feel like some of these, or all these groups, I mean, if you have to have an enemy to drive revenue. And so outfitters and landowners have become the target for certain groups, that these public land, public access groups. And I feel like they've kind of duped a lot of the people who don't fully understand what's going on. Like sure, it's cool to belong to a group that wants public access, and we're all hunters and that all seems like a good thing, but behind the scenes, a lot of these groups aren't good guys. A lot of them are political activist groups that are using these guys' dollars for things that they would never, ever approve of. And so, I don't know if it's anything you're ever going to change, but those groups are, they're out there, and they're well funded, and they're not going away.
So how are they using these dollars that their members probably wouldn't appreciate?
Well, if you look at, a lot of them are just political activist groups is all they are. I mean, they're like they've been called green decoys or whatever, but if you look at every legislation that they've ever supported, they've never supported a Republican bill, an idea. If there's a proposal coming from the outfitters, it doesn't matter if it would benefit them immensely, they'll oppose it wholeheartedly every time. And it's been, a lot of this stuff, just the regular members, they're not checking on how what their organization is supporting or funding, but I feel like they should look into it. If you're throwing money at a group, you might want to know what their agenda is.
All right, well, let's finish it up with this question. What do you see as the future for the Wickens Cattle Company and Matt and his family?
Well, I guess my ultimate goal, I would sure hope that my kids would want to continue it on in some way. But that being said, I'm not going to force them, or, you know, hopefully we've laid the groundwork for something that lasts for a long time, you know. I guess, yeah, my ultimate goal is that we just leave this land a lot better than the way we found it, and that my children will continue it on and just make it even better.
Thanks for listening. You can find this podcast wherever great podcasts live, including on the Shepherds of Wildlife Society website at shepherdsofwildlife.org. Please tell a friend, and let's save wildlife together.